Hello, everyone, and welcome to CFB Unfiltered. I'm Blaine Gilmer here with Donovan White and Josh Taylor as we bring you all things college football related. Go ahead and do yourself a favor. Follow us over there using @CFB Unfiltered on Twitter. We're trying to put more content out there as we go along, especially during this bowl season here. We're going to be talking today about the New Year's Six previews, some of those games. We're not going to get into the CFP ones as much, more the ones that aren't in the CFP this week. And as we get closer to the CFP games, we'll do a full breakdown on those the next week. But we'll be talking Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. We'll be talking about Baylor, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Donovan's beloved Ohio State Buckeyes versus Utah over there. So, guys, it's a crazy time. The transfer portal's on fire. We're going to be talking about a bunch of quarterback changes and running back changes. A lot of these skill positions going everywhere. Coaching carousel is now kind of calmed down a little bit. So, Josh, a lot to talk about here on this episode of CFB Unfiltered.
Yeah, next year is going to be intense. Like, man, who's their quarterback this season? I can't remember which one of the quarterback transfer actually went to the school. So there's a lot of big name schools getting some other big name quarterbacks. It's going to be really confusing next season, but also a star running back coming to Tuscaloosa out of Georgia Tech. Can't wait to talk about him a little bit. And then getting into some of these bowl games. And surprisingly enough, just doing some research on these games, there's actually a lot of big name people not sitting out in the bowl games, which has been kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, Matt Corral is really, on board with his teammates, saying, "Hey, listen, if it wasn't for my teammates and my coaches, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in right now." So he's electing to stay in there and play. But Donovan, how motivated before we get into some of these transfers? How motivated do you think the Buckeyes are going to be to take on the Pac-12 champs over there in Utah?
I'm a little worried. We'll get more into it. The preview. Allegedly, there's an influx of Utah fans waiting for the Buckeyes when they get there at the Rose Bowl, which never happens. There's never a majority against the Buckeye fans. I can tell you as a Buckeye fan, I'm not motivated. I don't care if it's the Rose Bowl. The season was a failure in my mind. And, it's cool. It's the Rose Bowl, New Year's Day. I'll have something to watch, something to bet on. That's about it. So I assume the players are probably thinking a little bit the same.
Speaking of having something to bet on, this show is presented by Bet Online, guys, because, Bet Online, it's the number one spot for basketball and football action. You got NBA going on because even Adam Silver saying, hey, now, COVID's here to stay. We got to learn to play with it, all that kind of stuff. That can't be said for the NHL. They're doing their own thing over there. But anything that you can bet on, you can do so by heading over to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code BELIEVE50. That's BLEAV50 to receive your bonus. Like I said, basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the offers in this 2021 and 2022 season. Right around the corner. So Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet Online, where the game starts. And Josh, speaking of starting things off, we're going to start off talking about some of these quarterbacks before we get to our New Year's Six previews, the non-CFP games. We're going to talk about some of these quarterbacks that have changed places and maybe, no more too impactful than Bo Nix to Oregon and Keaton Slovis over to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, starting off with Bo Nix, I think you called it last week saying don't be surprised if he goes to Oregon. So congrats to you on calling that one. And we were kind of talking about it before we started recording. That's a pretty packed up quarterback room. So it's going to be interesting to see if it actually pays off. That's the one question in all of this transfer portal news. Like, are you making the best decision for yourself? Is it going to pay off in the end? Are you going to just end up going somewhere that can hurt your draft stock like Bo Nix, where he was pretty comfortable at Auburn? If he stays another year, his draft stock went up this year. Could it take a step back if he gets beaten out by Anthony Brown next season coming back for Oregon, or five-star quarterback Ty Thompson over there at Oregon? So it's really interesting to see if these guys are making the right choice for him. But I'm really interested to see how the Bo Nix to Oregon fit is. I mean, I'm sure you know all about Dan Lanning and can tell us his kind of style to see if it actually really fits for what Oregon wants to do.
I mean, Dan Lanning is going to be aggressive. There's one thing I know about Dan Lanning. He will be aggressive. I mean, he likes to bring, really truthfully, if Kirby Smart didn't kind of rein him in sometimes over there, he would have been bringing six, every time over there on defense, I feel like. But that's kind of his philosophy. But in terms of offense, Obviously, I think he's going to want to be explosive, as all coaches want to do. And I think one reason he went and got Bo Nix, because he knows how much a quarterback who can extend plays with his legs, and truthfully, Bo Nix is one of the best at it. I don't care if it's pro or college football. His escapability is elite, right? I mean, I don't know about the decision making afterwards after he escapes sometimes, but being able to get himself out of trouble and extend plays and give offenses a chance, I think Dan Lannon knows that, that defensive, except if you're playing a Utah, right, you're not going to be playing elite defenses across the ball from you a lot of times. And, Bo Nix, if he does, go there and win that job as they expect over Ty Thompson, I think that could be a huge pickup for them. He's just got to make sure to value the football. If he does that, I think Dan Lannon's going to have a home run there. But,
they start the season against Georgia next year too.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of circling that one for Dan.
And here's the thing too, Georgia's going to lose 9 to 10 players off that defense this year. Yeah. So it's going to be an intriguing matchup to start off the year over there. But Donovan, I think that as impactful as Bo Nix is, Keaton Slovis over there to Pitt, with what Pitt has shown that they can produce offensively, that system, and now add another quarterback who I think is as talented as anybody in the country in Slovis. I think that's a big pickup for the Pitt Panthers.
I think it's huge. And we were talking pre-show a little bit, just the hypothetical of if JT Daniels transferred. I mentioned that I thought Pitt would have been a great landing spot for him. I think Pitt would have been a great landing spot for a lot of transfer quarterbacks. But the Keaton Slovis transfer for them, it almost keeps their program from taking a step back, right? Kenny Pickett, I think we can all agree, it might be the first quarterback taken off the board, certainly a top 10 pick, maybe even top 5. But it seems as though that the talent with Keaton Slovis is going to negate some of that loss right there. It's huge. Whether it was his talent was misused at USC or he was playing with the jitters, whatever it was, he needed a change of scenery, honestly. And I think Pitt was one of the best landing spots you could have gone to, just with their success you saw with Kenny Pickett developing him. I think you're going to see those Slovis. And again, it's interesting in a weak ACC, right? Miami's got a new look with Mario Cristobal, right? Clemson, who knows what they're going to do.
Clemson has lost. Yeah, let's talk about that with the portal real quick.
Mm-hmm.
They've lost, I think, 9 players to the portal. And they've only signed 13 so far in the early signing period. They're consistently below the scholarship numbers, and
they're in trouble.
If he loses your offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, athletic director, it's just Dabo right now. So I'm not.
They're in trouble.
If Dabo doesn't decide to change his policy towards the transfer portal and bring in guys via the portal, I don't see how they're not going to be playing consistently with 65 guys on a roster. I mean, they're going to be under the numbers, and that, it's not like COVID's going anywhere. So who knows, one game they could end up next year. COVID, makes a resurgence in the fall. They could end up playing a game with 50 something guys like an NFL team. Who knows what could happen.
Well, and 2 points with that is, no offense to the walk-ons in the team, but even the walk-ons going to Clemson or to Bama, they're great. They can go play in the MAC. They can go play at a lot of FCS schools. But unfortunately, they're still playing an ACC schedule. As weak as the ACC has been, you're still playing a Power 5 schedule. And at second point with that, Clemson is in dangerous water, in my opinion. I think it would be pretty unprecedented to see a dynasty, which I think it's fair to say Clemson has been in the past 5 or 6 years ish in college football, maybe 4 or 5, go from where they were to dramatically just trend down as fast as they could be. I mean, after this year, I get they have 10 wins, 9 wins, 9, 10 wins, go from even that, take a step back to where they're kind of trending towards. It would be dramatic, in my opinion, 2 years to see a dynasty fall like that.
Yeah, it definitely would be. Josh, I think the next tier of transfer quarterbacks would have to be two lefties. You got Dylan Gabriel and Max Johnson. Dylan Gabriel going coast to coast from Central Florida all the way out to UCLA. So he's going from one gimmicky coach and Gus Malzahn to another gimmicky coach over there and Chip Kelly. And then Max Johnson staying inside the SEC West, which is just mind-blowing. That used to never even be thought of, Josh. And now you've got Max Johnson, who just beat Texas A&M with a throw at the end of this year, is now going to be joining up with the Aggies over there and trying to hold off incoming freshman Connor Weigman. It is a just dynamic transfer portal situation. I think those two lefties have an opportunity to make quite an impact. Like I said, if Max Johnson can hold on the job, I think Dylan Gabriel's the more impactful of the two.
Yeah, with Dylan Gabriel, I really like the fit. I want to see how he works with Chip Kelly and with that offense. Post Dorian Thompson, with him going to the league for UCLA more than likely. I want to see how it translates with Chip Kelly's offense. He was a big name to be hired for Oregon to go back there. People saying like, oh yeah, we need that kind of style back. We need Chip Kelly back for this offense. I think Oregon made the right move. So I think Chip Kelly kind of staying there in UCLA, kind of building that program up, kind of like Pitt. Like, I feel like the Pac-12 is wide open. Like, Oregon's going through some changes. We'll see if they can, not skip a beat and just keep things rolling. Utah looks good. Hopefully they can keep that up for a little while. But outside of that, it's pretty wide open. Washington hasn't been the same. Arizona State's hit or miss. I mean, Stanford's been down for a long time. So I feel like this is a good opportunity for both Gabriel to improve his draft stock. This is going to be his last year. And then same with Chip Kelly. Be like, hey, I can take a guy for 1 year, develop him to a good quarterback, and keep this UCLA program going. And they're going to put some guys in the draft this year, like no doubt about it. And the same with Max Johnson, following his brother over to Texas A&M, who just signed there, like you said. It's an interesting fit. You have to think about the recruiting and Jimbo and everything going on with A&M. They just beat Alabama. It's trendy to go there right now. They're the number 1 signing class this season. It's flashy. You want to go there, so I don't blame him at all. The thing is, will he get beat out? I don't think so. I think he'll be the starter next year. But like I said, all these questions you're asking is, are you going to the right place? Is this going to work out for you in the long run? So I like these 2 spots for them guys. I like Keaton Slovis a lot too. He's going from Drake London to Jordan Addison next season. Like you said, Donovan, at the perfect time for the ACC when it's just one big question mark. So there's not one of these really moves where I'm like, I don't know. Same with Quinn Ewers to Texas. We kind of knew that was going to happen. We knew he was going to go to Texas, and they're starting to get really good signing class. They're getting some transfers out of the portal as well. So there's not really one of these guys I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe Bo Nix, just because I don't know how he's going to do in that West Coast style after playing this physical, slower Auburn team over the last few years. So I think Bo Nix is the one that could go south quickest. But other than that, I really like all these transfers so far for these quarterbacks.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, I think the biggest question mark is probably Jack Miller going to Florida. Never really was going to have an opportunity there at Ohio State. I just don't know if that's a great fit for Florida. I guess Billy Napier saw something that he really liked in there. Donovan, you would know more about Jack Miller than any of us, being an Ohio State faithful there. Tell people kind of what kind of fit you think that'll be at the University of Florida.
It's interesting because, coming out of high school, he was super talented. I mean, he was a 4-star, borderline 5-star quarterback. As Ohio State fans, we kind of already knew. It was kind of an unsaid, rule that once we saw with Justin Fields last year, now it was kind of clear that CJ Stroud was going to be the starter. It was an open competition, quote unquote. But it was pretty clear after the season and after the spring game in 2019, 2020, that CJ Stroud would be the starter, after Fields was gone, barring a Quinn Ewers at the time, massive upset, which obviously didn't happen. Listen, Jack Miller is talented. It's strange. He doesn't fit the typical Florida offense. His decision-making, obviously, with his most recent OVI is not the best. But, who knows? He's got the arm talent. Again, the recruiting history is behind him. I don't know. Josh, you were saying beforehand, it's strange with Anthony Richardson, him transferring in there with him already there. I don't know how that works out if Jack Miller's planning to sit for a year, or maybe planning to sit for a couple of years. I don't know how that works out. Because he's at least got to think about that. And I don't know how that works out too much. And he got the talent. I don't know how much he'll succeed at Florida. I don't want him to be another Tate Martell story. You transfer from Ohio State, and then next thing you know, you're on your fifth school. Yeah, it's awful.
I was gonna say he needed to pull like a Blake Barnett and go somewhere where he's like guaranteed to start. Yep. Even though Blake Barnett didn't really like ball out at USF, he still, put up some good numbers. Didn't work out for him in the long run. He should have went somewhere else. But just going to Florida at this time, like you said, it didn't really make sense. It's kind of like rolling the dice and just betting on himself. If Richardson's still there, I think Richardson will, absolutely be the quarterback next season. With Emory Jones going somewhere, I don't think Emory Jones hasn't decided where he's going yet, is he?
That's what I'm saying. No. He's not technically entered the portal yet. He's announced.
Flirting with it. He's
told everybody he's going to enter the portal. He's just going to stick around for this bowl game to kind of for his teammates and stuff like that, and play this bowl game for Florida, especially because Anthony Richardson's out for that bowl game with a knee injury. So,
let him go to UCF with old Gus Bus.
Yeah, I don't know where the fit for Emory Jones would be. I mean, who knows? I mean, but a guy who has that amount of SEC experience, I mean, somebody's going to pick him up. To be quite honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked if depending on what happens with some of those Big 12 schools and maybe some of the schools entering the Big 12. Who knows? I don't know what Cincinnati's got in coming in behind Desmond Ridder, but a guy like that can be a dual threat guy like Emory Jones and that's played big time college football going into the Big 12. Is that somebody that Cincinnati reaches out to later on? So who knows what happens there with Emory Jones going forward. But last but not least, we've talked about nothing but quarterback transfers, but Josh, I know you want to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs going to Alabama and what kind of impact that's going to have for Nick Saban's offense next year.
Yeah, he's got a lot of experience, and he still technically has 2 years of eligibility for Alabama. A lot of people in the draft are saying he would be running back 1 for 2023 just because of his dual threat ability, kind of like a Najee Harris. He's going to catch the ball a ton. He can break tackles. He's quick. But the thing that just really impresses me the most is he has that experience right now. I wish he could play in the bowl game coming up because we are lacking running backs. I think he's going to just flow right in and kill it. It's just funny how people made this rule, like I said, for Mo Smith going to Georgia, and now Nick Saban's just using it against everybody, getting, Jameson Williams, Henry To'oTo'o, and now Jahmyr Gibbs to Alabama. So I'm hyped about it. I think he's going to be killer next year. Don't be surprised if he's in the Heisman talks.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I just don't know, I don't know how much he's going to have to, I think, be more involved in the passing game side of it, right? Because I mean, I know Alabama wants to run the football, but man, when you have the weapons that they do and the weapons they just signed in that passing class, I feel like, and then you got the Heisman Trophy winner returning at quarterback, I feel like they're going to keep that thing in the air a good bit next year. So
I could see him having, like I said, like a similar role to what Najee Harris did, though, catching a lot of balls in the backfield, making big plays. But yeah, absolutely. He's got to be able to pick up some blitzes, as we've seen. There's a couple times this season, once again, we could use some blitz pickups. Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to head into our New Year's 6 previews. These are going to be the games that aren't the CFP games. We'll get into the Cincinnati, Alabama, and the Michigan, Georgia game next week. But we're going to talk here about the other 4 of the New Year's 6 games, and then we're going to start off with the team that finished just outside the CFP, with Notre Dame at number 5 being a 2-point favorite against the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who finished second in the Big 12 behind Baylor. They're on a heartbreaking goal line stand that went just inches short away from them over there. But we're going to see, how Notre Dame plays under Marcus Freeman, a new head coach, former defensive coordinator has been named the head coach, and he's one of the only ones, probably the only coach, because it was on staff, that gets to coach immediately in the bowl game, Donovan. And I think that's going to be a big impact. I've already seen some behind the scenes stuff and, wired stuff that they've done put out there. That team is responding to Marcus Freeman, it seems.
There's some serious juice behind Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame. And again, this is no discredit to Brian Kelly. I think he was a great coach in Notre Dame. And I think, there's arguments how well he'll do at LSU, but I think he was a great coach in Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman brings, it seems like, a different energy, a different feel, a little electricity in the air to Notre Dame right now. I'm curious to see how that translates over to this bowl game, being it so early. Then again, he was with them for this entire season, right? The guys know him. Seems like they love him. He's more defensive minded. I want to see if that juice translates over to Oklahoma, against Oklahoma State, who on the flip side probably is feeling a little bit disappointed, right? They probably missed out on a college football playoff opportunity. There's a shot, right? There's a debate between them and Cincinnati, or them if other scenarios happen, but they lost it on that. One of the biggest transfers, in my opinion, quote unquote transfers, was Jim Knowles, their defensive coordinator, leaving for Ohio State. They're losing their leader on the defense, in all honesty, defense that was top 3 in most metrics. They're losing him. I'm curious to see how the juice of Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame stacks up against kind of the sturdiness, the steadiness of what Oklahoma State was this season, which we don't know if they're going to be that steady, if they're going to be that rock that we've seen. Of all the teams in college football this year, Oklahoma State, especially on the defensive side, because their run game and their defense has been consistent. I'm curious to see if that stays steady against the kind of resurgent Notre Dame program and the Notre Dame team.
Yeah, I mean, don't worry. They have a leader and they have a coach on the field. His name's Malcolm Rodriguez. So I think their defense is going to be fine. I like this matchup. And you talked about with Marcus Freeman, but the same with Mike Gundy. I feel like both of these teams are teams that are behind their coaches. They play with a lot of energy. I mean, if you watch that Oklahoma State and Oklahoma game, they're still fired up from that. Yeah, it's a heartbreaker losing to Baylor. But still, you have to remember that game. You have to remember the energy they played with, the passion they played with. It was just a physical matchup for them. I mean, Caleb Williams on the bench just worn out with his head back thinking, like, Lord, I hope this game ends soon. Like, that's a victory for you if you're Oklahoma State. Like, you haven't beaten Oklahoma in the past. So I feel like they're really behind Mike Gundy. And the biggest thing for me is Jalen Warren. And I've been talking about guys not sitting out. He's been banged up. He was injured. He didn't get to play against Baylor. They said he's trending on playing this game. Because Notre Dame, you have some guys sitting out. You have Kyron Williams, who's going to the draft. He's only a sophomore, but he's a phenomenal running back, one of those big names. And then, of course, my guy Kyle Hamilton. He's not playing. So Notre Dame is having a couple of guys out of this game. You need Michael Mayer at tight end to step up and have a monstrous game against that defense for them to be able to put points on the board. Jack Cohen, he's not looking forward to going against this defense for Oklahoma State, I tell you that. But I think there's just a lot of juice on that Oklahoma State side, with the players not sitting out, with riding that Oklahoma win and just wanting to end this season at a magical mark. Like I said, Malcolm Rodriguez, he's one of the more phenomenal guys to watch at linebacker. He is a true leader on that defense. I don't think they will skip a beat. I think I like Oklahoma State style-wise in this matchup just because if Warren plays especially, I think they'll be able to run the ball as long as Spencer Sanders does not turn the ball over. Don't be that Spencer Sanders. Be the Spencer Sanders that we liked, putting your nose down, being physical, picking up first downs, but do not turn the ball over that much, and you can beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, you got Notre Dame with an opportunity right off the bat, and Marcus Freeman's first game as a coach to try to change a narrative, right? That Notre Dame can't win these big games, can't win in on the huge stage. You know, when it comes down to it, they always get in the New Year's Six or even in the college football playoff and come up short. So they've got that opportunity. So I think there's ample motivation on both sides in this game, and I think, even though I do like the fact that all the Oklahoma State players are playing, and with Kyle Hamilton being out, I just think that momentum is a big thing, right? And I think that Marcus Freeman and what he's instilling, I mean, I just think there's so much more energy, right, in that program in terms of, okay, this is a new beginning, right? Whereas as Oklahoma State, it's more about, okay, finishing strong and trying to get back up after a disappointment in the Big 12 championship game. I'm gonna take the Irish to win this game. I think they take care of business against Oklahoma State.
I don't like, I mean, Chris Tyree's the backup running back for Notre Dame. He only has 50 carries for 204 yards and 1 touchdown. They're going to rely heavy on Jack Cohen. I just don't see him being big enough to score over 21 points against his Oklahoma State defense. So if I had to put points on it, I'm going to say 24-17 Oklahoma State, low scoring, but I think they win this one based off of that defense. And if, like I said, if Jalen Warren gets them legs going, he's going to run that rock.
Donovan?
Yeah, and again, I got to apologize in advance to a coworker who will remain unnamed, who's a massive Oklahoma State fan. I think Notre Dame's going to win this game. It's just a feeling with it that I think, nothing against Oklahoma State, but they lost in a heartbreaker in that game, again, for Big 12 championship. Looking in hindsight, it wasn't for a playoff spot, considering, Bama beating Georgia.
But it could have been.
It could have been.
They didn't know that at the time.
They did not know that at the time, but at the time it was a heartbreak, and it's still a heartbreak. You lost the conference championship. I just think everything is riding with Notre Dame now. And again, I am not a fan of Notre Dame. I really am not. I don't think they're a top 5 team. I think they could play like a top 5 team right now with Marcus Freeman and the energy that they're giving off from him. Just from what we've seen, the improved offensive line play, the improved run game that's been, kind of cranked up a little bit the last half of the season-ish. I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go Notre Dame. I still think it's low scoring. I'll go 24, Oklahoma State 16.
Yeah, and my only thing is I would have thought that Oklahoma State, I picked them to win the Big 12 championship, right? I thought they were gonna take care of Baylor in that game, but as inept as you see as you see sometimes that Notre Dame's offense has looked this year, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for Oklahoma State when they're not able to just continually run the football, right? And I don't think that Marcus Freeman, much like Dave Aranda did, is able to scheme it up. Marcus Freeman is a very, very good defensive mind in his own right. I think he's going to scheme it up and not just allow him to run the football down their throat. So we got a kind of 2-1 split there on that first New Year's Six game. The next one, I mean, we can touch on it. We're not going to touch on this one a whole lot because Kenny Pickett's not playing in this game. But you got the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, which is on the 30th. Guys, I just think that with Kenny Pickett not playing, everything's out the window for Pittsburgh. I just don't know. You know, obviously, I think that was the way to attack them with Michigan State having the worst pass defense in the country, like literally 130th, worse than anybody. It was really, really bad. Ohio State just absolutely embarrassed them. I think Kenny Pickett could have added to any kind of records he'd already set. I mean, he'd have dropped a nice chunk of yards, but he's going to get ready for the NFL draft, and can't say that you blame him. But
same with Kenneth Walker. This is the game where everybody sits out. This is the backup bowl.
There's a lot of people sitting out in this game. But I just think overall, Michigan State, you know, they got a lot to play for. They were the biggest kind of surprise of the season. I mean, we had them as one of the worst teams in the Big Ten preseason, and they end up 10-2. They're a 2.5-point favorite. I think Mel Tucker, you know, coming back down to Georgia where he coached, you know, with Kirby Smart at Georgia before leaving to Colorado and then going to Michigan State. I think he's going to be comfortable there in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and we'll see how they do. But I'm going to take Michigan State to win this game. I say they probably do so by 7 to 10 points. I just like them to be able to manufacture enough offense, even though Kenneth Walker's not going to be there. It's going to give them an opportunity to try to distribute the ball to some other guys and kind of get going for next year.
Yeah, I'd rather replace a running back than a quarterback. So I'm going to go with Michigan State too. I think a lot of their guys will play. Like I said, the big one being Kenneth Walker. He's the one that's not going to be playing. But for Pitt, for Pat Narduzzi, you have Keaton Slovis coming in. So I don't know who's going to be quarterbacking for Pitt, but I feel bad for him because it's like, hey, this is your one shot to impress whoever you want to impress before Keaton Slovis comes in and takes over. But yeah, I agree. I got Michigan State winning this one by about 7 to 10 as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think Michigan State, I still think their defense is pretty bad. I think Pitt will give them a little bit of a scare, so I'll go like Michigan State 34-27, 34-28. But I don't think it'll be much in doubt that Michigan State has it.
Yeah, I don't know if Jordan Addison's playing. He's coming back next year, so like you would figure he's playing. But if I'm him, like I'm probably not wanting to play in this game at all.
Well, yeah, and then Mark Whipple, the Pittsburgh offensive coordinator, he's left and going to Nebraska already. So they're going to be without Kenny Pickett and the offensive, mastermind behind their great deal theirs this year. So definitely got to go with Michigan State in this one. They will be taking the Peach Bowl. We all have them taking that over Pittsburgh here. Now, in the other New Year's Six matchups here, we have our next one is Baylor and Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl, and I think this may be my favorite matchup of the entire postseason because you have the Lane train rolling into New Orleans, and when you got Lane Kiffin in New Orleans combining, who knows what'll happen anyways.
Don't let anybody get arrested.
Exactly. And then you also have I almost call him, he's almost like a sociopath because there's absolutely no remorse and no emotion whatsoever from Dave Aranda. I mean, he is like, they just won the Big 12 and he's over there stone face. He's like Tom Glavine on the mound for the Braves in the World Series back in the day. I mean, just no emotions. Couldn't have two more diverse, more adversely opposed coaches in their demeanor and how they go about things. But you got the high-powered Lane Kiffin offense with Matt Corral, who's absolutely playing in this game, going against the Big 12 champions, the Baylor Bears, who them and Michigan State, like I said, are two of the best stories of the year in those turnarounds. So, guys, what do you think about Matt Corral and Ole Miss taking on Dave Aranda's defense over there?
Yeah, for me, this is exactly what I'm watching for. I just tweeted out tonight, like getting ready, watching, like prepping these notes and stuff. I'm like, Matt Corral versus a Baylor defense is exactly how we need to end the season for this guy. This is, he's not going to be at the Senior Bowl. This is his shot to shine in front of a really good defense that only allows 19.2 points per game. And so, like, yeah, I'm that dude. It wasn't just a 1-year thing. I can keep this going. And that, like you said, Kenny Pickett's probably quarterback 1, and I'd say Corral's number 2. And Pickett has that Senior Bowl to be able to flash and, put on in front of scouts and stuff. But Matt Corral's like, hold on, I'm going to get my shot before you go. And I can kind of, put my 2 cents in there to be quarterback number 1. I really like this matchup. Like I said, not many guys are sitting out. We're still waiting to hear about like Adrian Ely and Dontario Drummond, who's also going to the Senior Bowl. So I'm waiting to see if some of these weapons sit out, or if they're all like, yeah, Matt, you're right. We're riding with you. We're all going to play in this bowl game together. Because that's his weapons right there. He's going to need a good running game. He can't just be, slinging it 40 times this game against that Baylor defense, who's got studs all over the field as well. I really like this matchup, and I really hope that Abram Smith plays as well, because if he does, he's probably going to rush for about 200 yards and 2 touchdowns on that Ole Miss rush defense, which is not good at all. So I think this is going to be back and forth. I think everyone's expecting a really low scoring game. But I think they both go at it, and I think this could be like a 28-31 kind of matchup.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on who's going to be at quarterback for Baylor, right? Because Blake Shapen played really well, did some good things, but Jerry Bohannon there, I mean, he was the guy before he was injured. Will he come back and make it in time? Dave Aranda says he believes that Bohannon will be healthy enough to play in the bowl game. So that leaves you a decision. Do both play? Who knows how they handle it? That would give Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, I'm sure they're having to prepare for both guys. So
2 completely different kind of guys.
Yeah, two different quarterbacks. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Jeff Lebby, getting set to go over to Oklahoma, become Brent Venables' offensive coordinator over there. So I'm not sure. Has Lebby announced that he's going to stick with the team through the bowl game? I know Dan Lanning is with Georgia, even though he's taken the Oregon head job. Is Jeff Lebby going to stick through the game? If not, I don't know that that's as big of a deal, because Lane Kiffin has had his finger, even though Lebby does call the plays. I think Lane Kiffin has been all over that in terms of game planning and assisting him in calling the plays and things like that anyway. So, but still something to keep in mind, because Lebby does have a good relationship and rapport with Matt Corral. So if he's not there, does that play an impact in it? A lot of things to look at, but both of these teams, Donovan, this game matters to them, even though it's not a college football playoff game. You've got Ole Miss, who has never had a 10-win season before. They've just won their 10 games for the first time this year. They're trying to win a Sugar Bowl for the first time in a long time. And then Baylor, who nobody expected to be here, is really trying to carry momentum into the next season. And we'll see how Dave Aranda and company are able to do it. What do you think about Ole Miss taking on Baylor, Donovan?
I love how these two teams are kind of polar opposites, especially on offense, right? Baylor can run the ball super well, can't throw to save their lives, in my opinion. Ole Miss, they're not really known for the rush game this year, but they have a top quarterback, which I know Josh and I will be watching very heavily, because I think we're both on the same page of we're kind of hoping for Matt Corral to be the future quarterback of the Washington football team. I think him deciding to play and the emotion behind his speech of saying it was amazing. Honestly, you don't, as a former player, you see it a lot with guys opting out. I totally get it. Jake Butt from Michigan, I'm sure a lot of people remember that, comes to mind immediately. So I've changed my tune on a little bit of players opting out, especially after that happened, and just seeing the outcomes. But to have a guy of that, clout come out, basically that guy who can be a top 10 pick, and probably the second quarterback come out and say, hell no, like I'm playing with these guys. They deserve it. I deserve it. We all deserve to go out playing together. It's the lead of your team rallying the troops for war. And I think this game might be the best New Year's Six Bowl. Like you mentioned, Blake, it's one of the ones I'm most excited for, other than the Buckeye game, just out of natural fandom. I think Ole Miss does take the win here. Josh, I know you said it was low scoring game. I'm going to go Ole Miss 31, Baylor 27. I think it'll be a little close, but I think Matt Corral is the one in the end with his arms and legs that gets it done.
Yeah, I think if you give as great of a mastermind as Dave Aranda is on defense, I think if you give Lane Kiffin that long to scheme you up and to put in, Lord knows what kind of crazy trick plays and who knows what he'll end up putting in. I think Matt Corral, he won. I think Ole Miss won this game when he went to the podium and said that he was coming back, and how you said he did with the emotion and talking about his teammates. I think that's a rallying cry for Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss wins this game in a close one, like you said. I like that similar score, low 30s to win the game. I think first team that kind of gets past 30 points could end up being the winner. So I like Ole Miss to win this game. Josh, what do you think?
It's tough. I really want to go with Ole Miss, and that's who I think if I had to put money on, I would bet them. But this Baylor defense has 32 sacks, 40 pass deflections, and 16 interceptions this season, led by a guy who was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Jalen Pitre, who's an All-American, had 70 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 7 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. He's like that hybrid guy. He plays safety. He plays like a Buffalo kind of role, the linebacker. He can play nickel corner. He can do a lot of things, and his range is insane. This guy is going to be a lot of fun to watch in Mobile at the Senior Bowl as well. He can really take that next step into the NFL and just show off his range and speed. But it's Matt Corral. He does have Snoop Conner. He does have Jarian Ealy that's going to help balance. I think Ole Miss wins this one. I agree with y'all. I think it's going to be like the 31-28 kind of range. The over-under is 55, and I feel like it's really low.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it could be low, but, it depends on whose style of game it goes into. If Baylor's able to sustain some drives and keep that Ole Miss, 3-2-6 defense on the field that they employ, it could be a little bit different.
I feel like with Ole Miss, they just spread it out so much, though. You can't play like hard nose, like, we're going to stop the run because then you're going to get killed deep. So I think Baylor's really got to kind of not watch out on the defense, but they have to be cautious. Like you said, Lane Kiffin's got so many trick plays up his sleeve that he's ready to just throw out at the end of the season.
We had a comment here from Scout Hughes asking, I know we're talking about New Year's 6 right now, but he's asking, is it true that Rutgers is taking Texas A&M place in the Gator Bowl? And, on that we have, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for those watching on the 365 Sports YouTube channel. You have Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic, who is reporting that Rutgers is set to receive and accept a bid to play Wake Forest in the Gator Bowl down in Jacksonville. So we will see. We'll see what happens there if that report ends up being confirmed. But you have a 5-7 Rutgers squad who is going to be going bowling this offseason.
I saw Marshall. And I was like, this is terrible. And Rutgers is even worse. I saw a lot of my Coastal Carolina guys were like, hey, we finished the season strong. We'll do it. Like, we're game to take them on again. A better record team who, is probably going to finish ranked more than likely. I think right outside the top 25, if anything. But wow, that Rutgers team versus Wake Forest. So Wake Forest, you better win by 20 plus.
They're going to. It's a shame to see a Big Ten team get slaughtered in the bowl season, which is exactly what's going to happen to 5-7
Donovan just hates the Big Ten bowl record after
that. Every single year, man. It's killer.
I mean, you can't blame Rutgers though, because this is going to be
$5 million.
It's going to be a nice payday for them.
Oh yeah, big payday.
Gator Bowl is no small bowl. I mean, it's a New Year's Day bowl, I believe. So they're going to be playing in a
they get out of the snow.
Yeah, they get to go down to Florida and we'll see what ends up.
I did not see them being the pick, honestly.
Well, by the way,
Marshall,
and I'll give you a little insight on this. When you're 5-7 like that, or even 6-6, because I've been in the spot before where you weren't selected for a bowl game, but it was maybe especially last year. I thought my football career was done. Right, we only had 3 games, and then there was a rumor of we're going to play in a bowl game. I was home. Right, those Rutgers players, I guarantee you, were sitting at home with their families. Maybe still on campus, right? They were like, all right, season's done, and we're definitely not playing a bowl game. And now they're playing. They are going to have to get ready in 8, 9, 10 days. It is going to be a slaughter fest by Wake Forest. because they're just sitting around doing nothing. They did not think this was going to happen. I've been in the same spot before, and you get the news, and you're like, "Oh, okay, that's awesome. We're playing in a bowl game. Cool, great."
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. And last New Year's Six game that is not a CFP game, before we talk about some of the new CFP COVID rules and things like that have been came down today, is Ohio State 6.5 point favorites over the Pac-12 champion Utah Utes over there. You got Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who are unlikely to play in this game, probably going to opt out. But you do have CJ Stroud, who is a Heisman finalist, and a explosive Ohio State offense, despite those two opt outs with TreVeyon Henderson being there. But man, it is a stout defensive front that Utah brings to the table, even with Ohio State, how they like to run the football with Henderson. So, Donovan, this is going to be an intriguing matchup for your Buckeyes.
It is. I want to see what the motivation is. I mean, personally, I'm more motivated for the Miami Redhawks tomorrow. Go Redhawks. Shout out to them. -2.5 is free money against North Texas. Who the hell is North Texas?
He's lost me a lot of money with those free money bets.
Who the hell is North Texas anyway? -2.5 free money. Anyway, listen, it's tough. Again, we talked earlier. I think Utah fans have apparently bought out the stadium for this game. And Ohio State has no shortage of offensive firepower. Even if Olave and Wilson do opt out, you still have Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have Jeremy Rutger, who I think is one of the better tight ends in the country. You have Julian Fleming, right? You have Mika Mbuka, right? You've got a stud young wide receiver group behind them. It's just a matter of they're going to be ready. And the difference is that Utah wants to win this game. And I'm sure Ohio State does too. Ryan Day's going to have ready.
I think you're familiar with a team missing out on the playoff and facing a Utah team in a New Year's Six environment.
Yeah, Urban Meyer needs a job. You never know. He might come back with Alex Smith.
Utah just smoked Alabama that year when they were left out of the it was the BCS back then. They were left out of the BCS championship game, and
was it the Sugar Bowl?
It was the Sugar Bowl, and boy, Utah put it on them. So, I think that Utah is one of the most physical teams in the country. I really do. I think that the way that they line up, some of the big, they take advantage of recruiting the island of Samoa over there. Those guys that are big, just road graders up front, run stoppers up front on defense. I think TreVeyon Henderson and company, especially, if some of those vaunted Ohio State receivers elect not to play in this game, it'll allow Utah to be a little bit more snug in their coverage, add some more guys to the box, really try to muddy things up for CJ Stroud. And if they can contain TreVeyon Henderson early on, I think it would bode well for Utah. Like you said, Donovan, it's not that Ohio State won't be the more talented team when they arrive there. It's just, how motivated is Ryan Day going to be? And then I'm sure there's already whispers out there with, the Bears having been eliminated from playoff contention. Is Nagy going to be fired by Chicago? Would Ryan Day get the call with Justin Fields being there at quarterback to try to help him develop in the NFL? I mean, there could even be those distractions heading into the game.
Matt Nagy is 1,000% getting fired from the Bears, and Ryan Day is 1,000% not leaving Ohio State. It's too volatile in the NFL. You never know.
The NFL is violent.
and in my opinion, Ohio State's a top 3 coaching job in college football. I don't know why you'd leave it for any NFL team outside of probably the Patriots, where you could be out of there in less than 3 years. My opinion.
I will say Henderson is absolutely the most important piece for Ohio State in this game, because if he can't get the run game going, Stroud's going to be forced to do those throws like he did against Oregon. And Nephew Sewell, he's declared for the draft, but he said, I'm playing in this game. And I think my favorite linebacker in all of college football, Devin Lloyd, is going to be playing in this game. And if he is, CJ Stroud has to watch out, because if he is missing Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, which he should be, if you're either of those guys, please don't play.
They should. They need to get out.
Yeah. But like you said, he has his reliable tight end. He's going to win. He does have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's going to be deep, but this is a very physical Utah team. I know you played Michigan. It didn't work out for you. A very physical defense there too. So I think style matchup wise and the players that will be out. This fits really good for Utah. And they have Tavion Thomas at running back, who I think will be able to run the ball very well against Ohio State. So don't be surprised if this is one of those upset games. But Devin Lloyd, I cannot wait to see him against Ohio State's offense.
Donovan?
Yeah, I think in the end, there's a lot of things riding for Utah, right? They have probably the more physical team. They have the momentum. They have the motivation. The unfortunate news for Utah is they're not filled with five-star recruits. And that Ohio State in the past half decade or so does not lose non-playoff games. They played Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl in 2015, the year after they won the national championship. They destroyed them. They played USC with Dwayne Haskins in 2018 in the Rose Bowl, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it was a Fiesta or Peach Bowl. And they destroyed them. Ohio State, as of recent, has not lost these types of games. And I think talent will win in this. I still think they're going to be motivated. Give me Ohio State. I think the line was 6.5. I'll take Ohio State. I'll go 40. No, I'll go 38, and I'll go Utah 24.
Ooh, if they hang 38 on Utah, that's going to be impressive, because I think that Utah defense is pretty sporty.
Agreed. I agree.
I like how they do things. I think I'm going to pick Ohio State to win, but I'm going to pick Utah to cover, and I think it's going to be a lower scoring football game. I'm going to say Ohio State wins 27-21 over Utah.
I was going to say 27-23 Ohio State, just because they still have that big home run playability. Stroud still playing quarterback, and like you said, Smith and Jigba showed that he is very capable of being a wide receiver one next year. But I really like the style matchup. I think this is going to be another one of those fun ones to watch, kind of like Ole Miss and Baylor. But I think Ohio State wins, but I don't think they cover 6.5 points, and I think it's under 65.5 too. That's a lot of points.
And then, last but not least, guys, we've got the CFP games with Alabama and Cincinnati and Georgia and Michigan. We're not going to get into full previews of those right here, but some significant news that came down. They're getting more strict with the COVID deal. All the press availabilities are going to be virtual over Zoom beforehand. Teams don't have to report to the sites till 2 days before now, so they changed that. The travel deal also, non-essential like family members and things like that are going to be kept off the field. And then the biggest deal is the CFP comes out and Lord hope this is all just a moot point that doesn't have to be discussed. But if one team cannot play, they forfeit, and the other team goes to the national championship. If up to 3 teams cannot play, the team that's left, they just get named the national champions, kind of like 2017 UCF style. It's going to be just named the national champion. So I don't see how a group of adults went into a room and came out with that resolution. I saw Josh Pate, who does the Late Kick show, said, when I'm named college football commissioner, we will extend the season till Easter if we have to name a winner. So he's been campaigning to be the college football commissioner for a long time, but which I think there does need to be one, by the way. But I'm just saying, man, it would be something. Scout Hughes on here saying, imagine if Cincinnati wins the Natty and doesn't have to play a game. Alabama, Michigan, and Georgia all get hit with COVID.
Yeah, Joe Burrow was just saying today there's nothing to do in Cincinnati, so that's why no one on their team has it.
Yeah, that's true. Go get you some Skyline chili and go back to the dorm. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, I agree with it. I just don't think. I think that you're going to see, even with what's been put out today, I think you're going to see a lot of leniency in the testing and things
just
like
that.
Just
like the NFL just did.
Yeah, I think because at the end of the day, there's too much money on the line with some of these games and things like that. The rights they've sold, the TV, the advertising, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's too much money to be lost, and money is what makes this thing go around. We've seen that with these coaching changes and all this kind of stuff. NIL, it's all about the money now in college football. So we shall see how it all turns out. But anything else to add, guys, before we get out of here? I know we're going to be back next week after Christmas to talk about the college football playoffs.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
My final thought is Blaine. Again, you know how dirty I feel rooting for Georgia of all these 4 teams, but it's the best of bad options. Listen, in my bedtime prayer, I pray that Georgia does not have more COVID cases, because I cannot imagine a bigger mental catastrophe for me than to have Georgia have to somehow forfeit this game in Michigan to get a bid to the national championship. Blaine, I'm telling you, you cannot let, as a Georgia fan, you cannot let that happen.
I don't think you'll have to
you.
worry about Georgia forfeiting. I think magically you may see more guys vaccinated than were vaccinated yesterday. Who knows? I mean, it'll just, who knows what's going to happen. But I don't think you have to worry about that forfeit coming into play.
I was going to ask you, does JT Daniels, in fact, because that's like the rumor going around on Twitter, like JT Daniels has COVID. Like, is that like a fact?
We have reported at UGAsports.com that he, in fact, did test positive. George Pickens had that report came out that he had tested positive, but the deal on his is he's going on Instagram apparently and refuting it, saying it was a false positive. Who knows? But I will say this: the guys who test positive, they only get tested for one of 2 reasons. If you're vaccinated, you don't get tested unless you have symptoms. And if you're unvaccinated, you get tested regularly. So either George Pickens is unvaccinated, and which is quite frankly nobody's business one way or the other, but he's either unvaccinated or he was vaccinated and had symptoms, and that's why he got tested to begin with. But I believe Georgia, 93% of the team is vaccinated. So, it shouldn't be a widespread problem there for Georgia. I think it's just, just happens to be 2 high-profile guys. But really, truthfully, the biggest thing of it is George Pickens, because I don't think JT Daniels is going to play anyways. It's just a matter of that he was there
in the quarterback room. Yeah,
he was there as does it spread the quarterback room, and he was there as an experienced backup if something were to happen. Stetson Bennett gets hurt, something like that. Now you got possibly either Carson Beck or Brock Vandagriff one play away from getting in the Orange Bowl. If he's unable to play. So interesting there. But
Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone have it for Alabama. So it's still like, if someone does have it right now, it's still plenty of time before any of this really shapes up. But I agree with what you said with the new policy, like they like to call it. I don't see them ever canceling a game. I think they would absolutely push it back 3-4 days if they have to before they ever cancel a playoff game.
Yeah, and I think they'll make it easier, just like the NFL did, to test back into the games and things like that. As take
a little swab on the sideline, like, oh yeah, he's fine.
As this gets closer, so there'll be some rapid tests taking place. But
just a runny nose, that's it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But for the guys, for Donovan White and Josh Taylor, I am Blaine Gilmer. This has been CFB Unfiltered, presented by Bet Online on the 365 Sports YouTube channel, and then also the Believe Podcast Network. Make sure to subscribe. Follow us on all your Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find us using at CFB Unfiltered, at CFB Unfiltered on Twitter. And we will catch you guys next time for our preview of the college football playoff, Alabama, Cincinnati, Georgia, Michigan. It's going to be wild. We'll catch you then.